Today we're talking about the power of NFTs in music distribution.
So grab a coffee and join us as we talk and riff about how NFTs could be disrupting the music industry. I think fundamentally now we're seeing a shift between the old ways of things where people are doing streaming services and highly convenient to the user, but extremely inconvenient to the artist, where, you know, the streaming royalties are like a pittance, you know, like a fraction of a penny per stream, you know. But it's the advantages of the old ways, you know, or the Spotify way of doing it. It was like you have access to all this music and you've found loads of artists, and it's really opened the gates that way, but it's come at the cost of actually funding artists to be able to continue to do these things, you know. And it's worked for certain super artists who are massive, like Kanye West and people like that, have the power to dictate where they want to go with things and monetize off this. But like a lot of the lower artists, the ones who are beginning to start out, have no money or monetary support in the start of their career, really. And I think now we're going to start to see more of a push away from that, because even some of the bigger artists like Kanye is saying that like Spotify is bad and we should be moving to different things, you know, where they support the artist. And I think that's a really good thing, really. Yeah,
I was just going to add to that as well, wasn't it? Like about 5 years ago, Lily Allen took all her music off Spotify. I'm sure it was Lily Allen, because she wasn't happy with the rates, and then I think a few of the artists then proceeded. There's also the controversy with certain platforms that are expanding their reach, so taking on the podcast for the likes of Spotify.
Yeah.
And then you're seeing Neil Young taking off his music because of external controversy surrounding the Joe Rogan thing.
Yeah.
So how does that affect their release in the future?
Yeah, and it's weird because there used to be a band I used to follow called Dream Theater, and very out there band. They were never on Spotify for years and years. But what just mean I just didn't follow them, and it didn't benefit them because because Spotify has this huge market share. That like if an artist is not on Spotify, you're left alone. Especially as an upcoming artist, you need to be on Spotify because that's where you get most of your fans from, you know?
Yeah.
So it's kind of this like a devil you've got to make a pact with, sadly, otherwise you won't make it in a sense, you know, or you're lowering your chances of doing it, you know?
Yeah, for sure. Well, it just makes it a lot more difficult if you're not staying upbeat with everybody else in the market.
Exactly.
Putting yourself against a bit of a competitive edge.
Yeah. And it's a shame because I get royalty checks every so often, and a couple of quid here and there, you know, it doesn't even cover the cost of the tea I drank making the track, you know.
yeah that's it.
But I'm not going to say like streams should be worth a lot. They shouldn't be worth £1 a stream or some ridiculous like that, but there's plenty of room to increase it, you know. I'd expect, you know, if you get 1 million streams, I think 1 million streams a month is kind of around where the average wage is, you know, and 1 million streams a month is ridiculously difficult to get.
Yeah, I think I read earlier that 1 million streams will get you $7,000 if you own 30% of the label.
Really, yeah.
And that's a lot of listens for such little return, isn't it?
Yeah. And, you know, take away the cuts that certain people have in that, you know. Like, well, all the contracts I've signed are 50% cut. So generally, I've had one that said 70. But, you know, they take their cut, but then they take in another cut out of that because they're saying, we put money into promo and stuff like that, and that comes out of this, and then there's like this and that, and then it's all smoke and mirrors and shadows, and, you know, I don't know what's going on with any of my money. I do think I can ask for a report, but I've never been bothered about doing that, really. I should do, because some of my tracks now have got like 50,000 plays now, so that's nearly 100 quid, I think, or something like that. So I should be asking for a report on that, really, because that's a sizable amount of money, really. You know?
Absolutely. Absolutely. So as these labels continue to take advantage of the artists that they're signing through the likes of the services like your Apple Music, your Spotify and your YouTube, obviously opening up a door then for a bit more of a decentralized platform to come and take the reins. But I hear a lot of these NFTs being developed to give back the power to the artists. What's stopping the labels who have the rights to the majority of the artist's work and even appearance and music genres just developing these NFTs and continuing that momentum.
I don't think there is. I think like fundamentally there's not. There's no like structure to say that they can't do this, but I think it's attitude. I think like right now everyone's annoyed at the old system. So everyone who's all the forward thinkers who are moving on and like, you know, creating this new way are all about taking the power back. So by the time these big players move in, there's already this healthy relationship with the freedom of your own artistry in a sense. So maybe by the time they come over, too late.
Yeah.
You know, and like if this environment develops where it's all about artists having, you know, getting paid their dues and stuff like that, it's going to be a lot easier for an artist to be in this space and be like, oh no, actually I can go on Spotify, or I can go on this other platform that's been developed, and everyone there is all about artists.
Yeah. So like the majority of, back to like what I was saying, is the majority of people that I hear talking about the NFTs and how it can help the artists is because you're cutting out the middleman, of being the labels and the ones that are creaming off your back. But I see a future where it's not potentially so much cutting out the middleman, it's just taking back a little bit more power.
Yeah, you need the middleman, and well, you don't, but it's kind of like the point of a middleman is to free up time for you, and the point of a middleman is to do things that you can't do, you know, and like that can be a detriment sometimes, where you should be putting in a bit more work because they're taking advantage of you. But it can be helpful sometimes. Like if I wanted to do something where I didn't have the power to, like a plumber is a middleman in a sense, you know, the job is I need to get my plumbing fixed. I could learn to do that, but I haven't got the time or the skills to do it at the moment. So I pay the plumber to do it, you know, and it depends where you want to draw where the middleman is, you know, obviously like, you know, some people may say, well, actually no, the plumber's the end goal. And so a middleman would be like someone you contact to get the plumber out. And that's fair enough. But it's just about a middleman's that allowed you to facilitate what you want to do. Now that comes in like a bit more difficulty where like right now with the current way of things is the middleman, Spotify, you know, he's the middle between you getting your music to your fans. He is so powerful, this almighty Spotify, that he has so much power that he can dictate what happens, you know, and he dictates that you get 0.03p a stream or whatever it is. So, but he's so powerful in his like ability to give you exposure that you have to take it because everyone else is on board, you know. But I think in this new space, there'll be middlemen, but as long as the middlemen have got, like I was saying in the last thing, as long as these middlemen have got this mindfulness about the artist is who we support, and they've got that in mind, that's fine then, because the middleman now is not facilitating. I'm going to take money off you so that I can, you know, pay you 0.03p a stream. The middleman's now like, how do I get this artist to grow better? How do I get this artist to, you know, develop? Yeah,
so that's something that I see really interesting in the NFT space is the power of like the smart contracts that underlie the NFTs, is allowing the people to work towards the one objective, as opposed to a traditional sense where you've got the business that has just got the numbers as at the forefront of their minds when the board sat around their table and they're working out how they can turn as much revenue as possible that year. The music is just an after effect. It's essentially a byproduct. Whereas I see a future where using the technologies being developed right now, it's allowing people to put the music at the forefront. So the music is first. Now, how does that create the wealth behind the music? So take a label, for example. Even if it's a big label that's used to dealing with the big corps like the Spotifys and the Apple Musics, where they can start benefiting is by taking the tracks on, but creating an NFT where they're just taking a percentage of the aftermarket. And then it becomes in everybody's interest still to make sure that track gets as many views or listens as possible. But the wealth distribution is trickling down every tier a bit more fairly. So you've got the artist, you've got the labels, and you've got the consumers who could possibly buy some of these NFTs or a fraction of the NFT, to actually help promote everybody earning their piece, opposed to just the labels taking the cream of the crop, and then the artist being left with pittance.
Yeah. It's interesting, isn't it? Because I think like it's kind of changing the hierarchy of how it goes. Instead of like this pyramid down, then maybe it's more of a sideways type of interaction going on, where like everyone's benefiting from everyone putting in the effort. Where right now it's just like, well, Spotify distribute, and Spotify has obviously worked their way to get to the position they are, but Spotify just sits and like you send the music in and they use their service and spread it out. Then they take the money off the advertising and the revenue, and then they'll pay you a little bit of money, but it's in no one's interest really to kind of like overly push and sell Spotify, because everyone knows who Spotify is as well. I think like in this new space where it's more like community driven and everyone's like got this everyone's got this sort of family mentality where everyone's like really interested in the music and really interested in the artist, and that sort of support, that putting in the extra effort to show your friends, oh, look at this artist I found and stuff like that, and look at this, and you're sharing is just going to help everyone in that circle already.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, I'm with you on that. And back to your point earlier about the difference between the higher artists and the youngsters that are coming through. You're benefiting more as a youngster or as an underground artist coming through by having essentially a whole network of people working for you without any outgoing costs. Do you understand? So you can essentially assemble what the effective label would do today, but in just your super fans, which is quite interesting.
Yeah. And I think that's it. Like, especially with the whole newness of the space and stuff like that, you're going to get a lot more passionate people involved. I think like later on in its development life cycle, in the sense that you're going to get more of a normal running of its sense, and there'll be more of a diluted super fan area. But like, especially right now, there's going to be so much more raw passion in the scene, because like the only people who really, Joe Bloggs, who just goes to like events once or twice a year, maybe if they're on near him, doesn't really care because they just enjoy music. But the people who are really passionate about it are searching for new ways to share, searching for new artists, and searching for like just new experiences. And those are the passionate super fans. I have a super fan who's also a friend of mine, and he is all about music. He loves it. He's always talking about it, and he's always searching for new music. And those are the ones who you're going to be filling out the scene at the moment, which is really nice to see.
Yeah.
I think you're going to always get that when there's a new technology about, especially with music. Like you could probably imagine when vinyl moved on and you started getting more digital stuff, there was more of an influx then because of the convenience of digital,
the ease of access. Yeah.
And I think it'll be good. I think the more super fans, really, the better it is for the smaller artists, because they don't have access to the funds and the resources of the bigger artists, but they rely on their super fans to spread the word.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, and to that point as well, I suppose it's going to be the more fluid independence. By fluid, I mean like the more agile companies, etc., that can adopt this technology a lot quicker.
Yeah.
So they're the ones that are going to be able to maneuver their business or their sort of roadmap accordingly to fit into the ever-growing technology, to make sure that they can place themselves on the pedestal a lot sooner than some of the big corps can actually get involved. And you see that with the majority of things. Like exactly, it's like take the crypto space that's kicked off all of this. It's the younger ones that were allowed to, or had the freedom to take these, to maneuver their position, to take advantage of the technology that are benefiting now, and we're only just starting to see the banks starting to pay attention to it, as they feel as if they're being sort of cornered into it,
left out.
Well, this is it. The fear of missing out, of course, is what's accelerating their growth into the space, whereas other organizations have had 12 years of developing in the space because they had the freedom, and they were agile enough to make the decisions early on.
And you see already with artists and how the NFT space with music's been developing now for a while, and it's only now the one big player, Snoop Dogg, has just started to mention that he's really interested in getting into it and starting to develop things, you know? And he is the first big boy, you know, who's come in, you know, and which is ridiculous. I know a lot of people are talking about it. I've said before about, I know DJs who are fairly well known in techno and house, they're talking about it, but talking is one thing and actually getting involved is something else, you know?
Absolutely. Yeah. Well, just on your note of Snoop Dogg, it's really interesting to see. I was super proud when I seen that he bought Death Row Records, given the difficulties that they had as youngsters coming up in the scene, the implemented pressure from East Coast to West Coast, that was all sort of apparently made up by the Death Row Records just to sell the records. Really interesting story. I think we should delve into it in another video. So I was super proud to see that he's come so far and actually taken the record on now. Yeah. And then instantly, because obviously his involvement in the metaverse and what he's doing in the space, in whether it's Sandbox, whether it's with Gala Music, he's taken the lead in terms of headline artists. But as soon as he did that, I knew for a fact that he was going to be tuning that into some kind of NFT label. Yeah, 100%. And he's just come out and released it. So we should definitely touch on that soon. Yeah, do a little video about that. But yeah, so back to what we were saying in terms of the NFTs and labels and stuff like that. A lot of people are saying that this is going to be cutting out the middleman and you're going to be funding the artist as opposed to the label. Now, of course, the technology is there to allow that, but I would just love to delve into whether the labels are going to allow that, or what the future of a record label looks like using this technology. I think
there's a lot of lawyers looking at contracts right now being like, oh, how the hell do we... I know we have, there's a letter N, there's an F and a T, it's covered in the contract. I think that there's going to be lawyers 100% looking over to see, have we got them in the NFT? Have we got this? Does it count as music? Because you could argue that no, it's not music because it's code and you've tied the music to that code. But then they could say, well, actually you're reselling the music. You know, there's, I'm not a lawyer, I don't know, you know, but there'll be record labels trying to get into the NFT space as well. And like I said earlier, a middleman's not inherently bad. It's a bad middleman is bad. You could have a middleman you could have a record label that, like earlier I said, there's one record label that said they want to take 70% of my royalties. I signed the contract because they're one of the only record labels in the UK that really put an effort behind things. They like do live streams constantly. They reach out to some of the bigger techno brands to do advertising and stuff like that. So I'm like, you know what? You put the effort in, you get the reward, you know? And I don't mind helping them out because they're not that big at the moment, but you know, it's kind of like they're a good middleman. They get more from me. Yeah. But there's other record labels that take 50%, do nothing. You know, they put some of them, they'll put the song on, that's it. You know, barely share it on their page. And that's just lazy. Because at the end of the day, a record labels, a lot of these smaller record labels are run by one or two people maybe. And it should be treated as a business because you could run a record label as a little project, but you're signing people's music who are extremely passionate, and you should respect that by giving them the effort that they deserve, really, you know? Yeah. So for sure. So like from a label's point of view, obviously they decide how much the artist is getting paid in their contracts. Yeah. They decide the avenues of which their music goes down to, and perhaps even their appeal for the media. So they have a lot of say with what's going on in the space. Now, it's easy to demonize these labels, say that they take too much, they don't pay the artists enough. So I wonder whether the future of record labels, whether they can sort of position themselves in a place where they can still do all of the above, where they can help with the promotion, they can help with the distribution, because obviously these guys are extremely clued up. Yeah. They're the ones that have seen it a million times through all of the artists that they've put through their paces, and it clearly works because you get signed by a Sony You're done, you know. Yeah.
You've made it. So it's easy to demonize them, but it's also quite refreshing to go back and realize what these platforms are actually doing.
It's about talking about it though, you know, like everyone, you know, talking about issues causes more people to talk about issues, and that's how issues get highlighted. And then eventually there'll be a record label that is listening and be like, this is an issue that everyone's talking about. Let's be the record label that offers the solution to that issue. And then boom, they're successful. And that's what's good about talking about things, you know? And I think a lot of artists just moan about record labels, but they're thinking about it too, I don't know, too singularly minded, maybe too artistically minded, when in reality music is a business. They're offering a service. They need, you know, it's not free to put music up. So they're trying to look to make money back and stuff like that. But it's just good that people are talking about it, because I think the only way change is going to happen is through the talking, you know? And with this new space where everyone is literally talking about taking the power back off the labels that are going to be accepted into that space are going to be the ones who give the power. You know, they're like, we'll do this and this and this for you. We're going to be transparent. You know, if you're willing to sign the contract, that's fine. And then because it's more of an open space and people are more self-releasy, if they see a contract that they like, they're going to be like, they're going to feel no pressure to sign it, really, I guess.
Yeah, for sure. I do think there's such huge potential revenue to be made from the new technology. We're already seeing it. So like the metaverse was valued at around about 23 billion in 2021, which is
nice pocket money,
which is unfathomable growth from the year before. So the potential here is almost unbelievable. The amount of new money that's coming into the scene is extremely interesting to watch. So I think that what we have the power here is to do here is to bring a lot more money into the scene through the actual purchases of NFTs, because this is something that we haven't seen for the last decade as we've been streaming everything. So to be able to sell your song and somebody actually purchase the song and take it and own it, not the rights or anything, but own that actual physical song, equates to what it was like to buy a CD or a record player, or the record. So I feel like we're taking a step back and we're offering an ability to own your songs, which is a bit more of a traditional route from what we've seen 10 years ago. And then, of course, you build on top of that with the aftermarket sales, so taking it to a secondary market, and then these songs can become a bit of a collectible. So finding the young artist that's about to break it and buying one of his NFTs early days, and then watching him over the next 5 years make his way up in the charts, and then all of a sudden you can resell that song that you bought for $500 5 years ago is now worth 100x. And this is all fresh money, see, that's going to be coming part into the thing. So I think it's important to remember that the labels are taking the majority of the money right now, but that's because of the staple Web 2 services that are available. Has always been about how can they monetize it through advertising, whereas this is going to be, we can now monetize the actual music, hopefully leading to more money going to the artist who's creating the music, as opposed to finding the sponsorship deals or the adverts or the like. Do you get what I mean?
And you know, like the more money you give someone, the less likely they are to be taken advantage of by money means, you know? So like a lot of these artists, when they finally break it, get to these big record labels, the record label hand them a contract that's like, oh, we own you pretty much. Any money you make is ours, you know, because we're going to give you 100,000 to shoot a music video. But they take advantage of like young, impressionable people, give them girls, give them drugs, give them drink, you know, to get them on the ball. So they spend all their money, so they're tied to the contract then. There's a few metal artists who started up their own label just to be able to not do that, you know? And I can't remember who it was, but they were basically saying that a lot of these artists get like stuck in by these old labels, you know, in these deals, which, you know, it's not good really. And I think that having more money around and having more of a, like, your fans are supporting you is going to make artists look at contracts a bit less, I need to sign a contract, I need to be signed, and be like, well, actually, I'm doing all right without being signed, you know?
Yeah.
And that's important, really.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, for sure. Well, another Wonderful thing to come from the NFT technology is the transparency that it brings the artists and every layer of every layer that is being transacted. Do you get me? So I can create an NFT as a song. I can put that on the blockchain, and then every single transaction and every single royalty that's paid out can be as transparent as anything. So you can search how much the label took or how much the NFT platform took for in fees. You can see how much the Superfans, the community surrounded that are benefiting through royalties, are all collecting, whether it's weekly, monthly, yearly. So I think that's a really important staple of the NFT is the transparency and how you can open people's minds to where the money is actually going as well.
And I think transparency is everything. Transparency is everything. A lot of the problems we have with the old way of things is the lack of transparency, And I think when things are transparent and someone gives you an idea or a contract or rules that are transparent, if everything's out on the table and you agree to it, there's respect, and there's this understanding of things that are going on. And, to be I could look at that artist and see that, his super fans, mate, they are really keen on, and you could see by how much he's earning by looking at the ledger and stuff like that. His super fans are amazing. What is he doing? What is that artist offering those super fans? Then you can look and be like, well, actually, that artist is giving his super fans meet and greets. He's giving them special editions. And you're like, you know what? I should treat my fans a bit better, and it's just going to make people a bit more just better people, I think, because transparency always leads to honesty, and honesty is always treating people better, or even if you've got to do something that someone else doesn't agree with, at least there's an understanding, and then there's respect.
Yeah, exactly. I think tailoring off that as well, one of the strongest way to build the strongest community that you possibly can is to create as much wealth for them as possible as well. Because if you released an NFT collection next week, and then a year later, your super fans that bought it as soon as it was released, and they've seen their money 100x over a year, then they're going to be
super duper fans, mate.
They're going to be the most loyal fan that you could ever create yourself.
And imagine let's say I sell us an NFT, you buy it, and then a year later you get that, and then that's all you're going to be able to talk about. So you're doing NFTs, Josh? I tell you what. This one artist I bought, I've made 100 times the money on. And they're going to be like, what? Who's this artist? And they're going to check him out, because that's such a crazy story,
Yeah, exactly. And I think that's a really interesting point of what this can bring.
Yeah.
And as I said, it comes back to your community then being one of the most powerful communities because they live and breathe because you've given them so much as well.
Yeah.
It's like having a company where you're paying all of your staff unconsiderable amounts of money. Of course, they're going to be happy turning up to work.
Yeah.
And it's not really work, is it? It's listening to music and sharing it with your friends.
Yeah.
So an interesting thing that just stuck out of my mind with what you were saying about not asking for a report is really interesting because utilizing NFT technology, there would be no need for a report because everything will be firstly registered in metadata on the blockchain or on the NFT. Plus, everything will be trustless because it'll be coded into the NFT. So the distribution of the wealth come from that one specific NFT is going to be autonomous anyway, and you're going to be getting the royalties into your account and however it's divvied up in the contract.
Yeah. It'd be interesting to see, wouldn't it? And you could probably do that now, but no one. Why would you, as a label, do that? It's a lot of extra work, and you have to trust what they're putting through is correct, And the reason I don't ask them is that I know it's not going to be a lot of money. It's possibly a bit of work for them, and it's a bit awkward. It's like asking your boss for a pay rise type of thing. Can I have some money? It's just a bit awkward, and having it just publicly there, that you could check yourself without any, well, without any barriers really. You just check and you know that's actually public and it's always been public. They can't edit it. That is completely trustworthy, you know? So like you said, trustless in it because it's completely not in their control.
Yeah.
And that'd be a good thing. That's a really good thing because that's just extra transparency, you know?
Yeah, it just goes back to transparency again, doesn't it? Transparency is key.
Yeah, 100%. I think over the past like few years, it's been bad for music. Everyone understands this. You know, no one's really been going out for events. No one's really been, able to actually enjoy themselves in live scenarios. There's been a lot of streaming going on and a lot of like, I guess, disconnected live events. You know, you're not really there. And I think that's been good because it's kind of got people used to the idea that actually you can enjoy and support your artist without actually being directly there. But it's just not been a good for the artist in a sense, you know?
Yeah, well, I mean, there's been tens of billions of dollars knocked off revenue of the entertainment and live music industry, which is obviously a horrific thing to see. But on the flip side of that, it's really interesting to see how the market has responded and started paying more attention to this technology that's been developed. You've seen Eminem get on board. You've seen multiple artists across the world getting on board and adopting this new technology, which I don't think would have happened if we hadn't had such a big impact hit everybody in such a sense.
Yeah. I think the time that people have had off has been like beneficial in some ways, like you're saying, that against the other, you know, like it's been bad news, good news, you know, where while people haven't been able to go to these events, they've been able to support and find different avenues to support their artist, you know. And like this, I feel, especially with like how crypto boomed over the last 2 years, and I don't mean boomed as in like in comparison to like the last bull runs they've had, but I mean boom in I don't think there's ever been as much public talk about
Just
it.
user adoption.
100%, you know, and like it's been all over the news, both good and bad, you know, but it's warming people up for what we've been talking about, you know, about the whole like NFT, the whole digitizing of ownership within the internet and stuff like that. And like it's been a good time off where people have just been able to consume a lot more media and news, and like they've been less busy because people have been off work and stuff like that. And people have taken a more of a general interest in about the future of technology and stuff like that. And it's going to just help warm us up, you know, because it's quite a disruptive technology, possibly to the old ways of things. So it's been very beneficial in my eyes of just getting people more comfortable with the idea, you know, because it's going to take a long time to get the masses adopting. Yeah,
absolutely. Absolutely, yeah, I'm with you. And of course, besides selling songs as NFTs or albums as NFTs, it's also bringing the other form factors of community building, hasn't it? So artists have never been able to reach their communities in the same sense as what's available to them now. So it's not just the fact that they can sell and make a lot of money by selling a song as an NFT. There's a lot of caveats to that, but now they can start streaming into their favorite games or just reaching their communities on a completely different angle.
Yeah. And like, you know, I think you can like let's say your artist is streaming into your favorite game, and like you may have been a fan of that artist and you're a fan of that game, but like you know, one of your artists, you're not even a super fan, goes and streams in your favorite game or something. You're like, oh wow, I'm going to see that, and then you develop this different bond now because you've got like this double, like a double interest in the artist. Do you get me? Like, you know, it's like another avenue where like artists can reach and create new fans by developing multifaceted relationships with them in a sense.
Yeah, so the beauty of it as well is that musicians can also begin to capitalize on completely other avenues in terms of it's not just the music that they're selling. Is you can also tie in whether it's live AMAs or meet and greets, whether it's on a Discord channel, whether it's on their own website. It just opens up a lot of doors through this like selling of these NFTs to a massive other factors where you can start building these communities around the artists and their work and their creative expression, and possibly even start hiring them through those communities. So whether it's you're looking for art creators, directors, or anything like that, it opens up entire economies within the industry.
It's like a community of people like who all love this, but they're all going to offer something else up. Like, you know, I do a lot of like, I do some 3D design when I was younger, and I do a bit of artwork and I do videos and stuff like that. I go into the 3D space, I go into this space, and then, you know, or someone offers me something, I'm like, well, I can do that for you, you know, I can do this. And it's just going to be this nice little, like, it's just going to be this nice place where you can meet people who are all offering something different, but also all passionate about the same thing, you know?
That's it, everybody's benefiting.
Yeah.
Because with the NFT at the epicenter of the community, it encourages all of the layers around, regardless of what layer you're sitting, all of the layers around that NFT to partake and make sure that that's doing the best that it possibly can. So it's what I often speak about, like in terms of Bitcoin, when these companies seem to aimlessly start adopting Bitcoin onto their balance sheet, or whether they accept Bitcoin, the beauty of that isn't essentially in the Bitcoin itself, it's the entire community that you then start working for you.
Yeah.
Because if you adopt it onto your balance sheet, you then have 10 million other people who are using Bitcoin, who are now fighting for you, who are now working for you, whether they're securing the networks as miners, or whether they're just acting as influences or promotion just because you've adopted this new technology. So you've now got 10 million people working for you. Essentially a 10 million people community or company.
Yeah, and that, like, you may, you know, not be convinced on a product, you know, and as soon as they adopt Bitcoin, because you're interested in Bitcoin, they've gone up in your head. Your head's going to be like, oh, that's another common interest. Oh, I'll buy that now, you know? And it's kind of like this extra thing to connect with people who are interested in the products, you know?
Yeah, exactly.
The scene.
Yeah, so I think we think very narrow-minded when it comes to the NFTs, that you can sell your song or your album as an NFT. But I believe that the technology itself opens up a lot more doors that we're yet to discover. And I think that's the space that really interests me, and where I'm spending the majority of my time is how this affects us in the future. And as soon as we put down our blinkers, our Web 2 blinkers, and we can see the space for what it's really going to be, that's where I'm engaging most of my efforts, and looking into the future and seeing what the potential possibilities are of how we can really help these artists further.
It's interesting, isn't it? Because you can only really think about what what's around and your influences at the time. And like when a new technology happens or gets adopted, loads of ideas come out. But in fact, further down the line, there's going to be even more ideas, or more of a refinement of those ideas. So you can only really we're only imagining or repeating things that other people have, you know, imagined and repeated. And it'll just be interesting, let's say in 2 years' time or 5 years' time, what new ideas that we were like, oh, I can't believe I didn't think about that. Or how the hell did that come into their head, you know?
Yeah.
And it's going to, you know, the whole NFT thing is not just about, you know, the ability to sell and make money off pictures or music and stuff like that. There's going to be some really utility-based tools, you know. Well, it's about like the contracts and stuff. It's like about the smart contracts, really, and they're buying houses and stuff like that. Yeah, you know.
Yeah, I do really believe that the monetization that we speak around at the minute, as in the mass majority, I do believe that that's just going to be a byproduct of what this technology offers. As opposed to the main focus is going to be something that we can't even imagine right now.
Yeah, I think it's one aspect, you know. It's like the internet, you know. Yeah. And let's say NFT could be the father of something else. You know, it could be like NFTs. Okay, they die out in a few years because NFTs give birth to something even more utility based, even more, you know, even something that could be developed even better, you know?
Yeah,
and
absolutely.
That'd be interesting.
Yeah, absolutely. That's where I'm paying attention.
I think the new space is kind of offering like a lower barrier to entry rather than like the older ways where, like, you know, all these contracts and all the like Spotify distribution payout schemes and stuff like that. It's kind of like this whole like wall that you've got to climb to get successful with it, you know, to get this following and to get this. And I think like the NFT space kind of has this more like open arms, you know, come in here, help yourself and stuff like that. I do think there's a bit of more of a, because it's a new technology, there's not many people that you will know personally who've dealt with. And that's its own barrier in a sense that you have to do more research yourself, primary research maybe. But that's the cost of being a forward thinker, being someone who's trying to stay ahead of the curve, is you've got to become a good researcher, you know?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, so back to what we were saying previously, like, it's because it's such a young market at the minute, there's amazing opportunities lying ahead for the lower tier artists to really take advantage of here. It's just, of course, there are no code options out there where you can just plug your song into the NFT and then these no code options will produce it for you. I just think it's of utmost importance that if you are going to be delving into this space, you do really do your research. Back to what we were saying previously, is there's a lot of hearsay about what NFTs are, but I think there's far bigger opportunities to come, and the more people that begin to adopt this technology and start building in this space, the sooner that the layers are going to be peeled back and the more sort of development that we're going to see. And we essentially need mass adoption to start ironing out the kinks and getting rid of the issues as early as possible, so we can all start focusing on the true future of what this technology unlocks.
As with everything, isn't it? Like everything new has lots of issues, you know. But if you're a new adopter, you're there to take the issues, but exploit the goodness of it, you know. And as things start to get more ironed out, there's going to be less room for extreme growth, I'd say, for an artist, because there's going to be more other artists competing in the area. But it's going to be an easier ride, you know. So it's kind of like this whole balance, you know. Do your time and take the research and get reap the sow. I can't remember the saying. Reap what you sow. You know, you put the effort into research and take the risk of going into a new technology, get the benefit, or wait and let all the issues be ironed out and be in a less fortunate position.
Yeah, absolutely. And if there's one thing that I could add to that, is don't go into this with the mentality of a cash grab.
No.
If you are going to be delving down this space, the best mindset that you can have is, how can I help build the future? So this project that I'm about to undertake is going to be my life's work goal. And each step of the way is finalizing and trimming up the end goal. If you've got that mentality, so you're happy to make mistakes and you're happy to learn from your mistakes and learn from the amazing community that's being built out there, then you can't go wrong. Because it comes back to the community being at the center again. So if you're making something for your community, especially if it's your superfans, you want to make sure that they're being you're giving them access to the best potential opportunity, and you're only going to do that if you have their interests at heart, as opposed to just your own bank account. So I think it's really important to remember that you need to. This is going to be a very fluid market, and it's really important that you don't just have that one payday at the end of the project in mind. And you are actually experimenting and seeing what's going on in the space to develop what's going to work for the world.
If you found any value today, guys, please remember to like, share and subscribe to keep up to date.
Thanks for hanging out with us. Let us know your thoughts on the future of the industry.
Lovely. It's a wrap.